As we start tonight, here's what we're going to talk about, is that most companies waste an enormous amount of money on marketing, and it's a huge problem. It's really a problem. Anything that you do, if you're putting together a business, if you have marketing collateral, if you're trying to just kill a message, if you've got a presentation, most companies, most individuals waste a ton of money and a ton of energy putting together words that don't matter. And the reason is because we clearly don't understand what our customer wants and what we want them to do. So think about on your way to work. I mean, I'm not sure if you drive down the interstate or anything like that, but as you drive down and you see billboards, you're just driving 70 miles an hour and you're seeing billboard after billboard, or as you go through an airport, anything like that, and you're just seeing billboards and messaging going on there. You're just looking, and I mean, I buy billboards and I buy other things like that for advertising, and I just look and I see companies waste money after money after money after money because it's not clear what they want us to do. Now, how many of you guys, you've signed up, at a company, you've signed up for some sort of email discount marketing thing like that, right? I always give them my Yahoo email address. I don't know, that's the only reason I've kept it around, is so when somebody says, hey, sign up for our email, right? Our email list, or the worst yet, somebody's website says, sign up to receive our newsletter. And for those of you that have newsletters on your website, nobody wants to read your newsletter. And when you get those emails, you start reading them and you scan through them and it's just like delete, it's garbage. Because nothing in that email makes me want to buy anything. And even worse is websites. And towards the end of the talk, we're going to do a little bit of a 1-minute website makeover. So for those of you that have got your websites that want to put them on the screen, we can go through the websites and that'll be real fun, especially after this. If you've ever scrolled through websites that are just confusing, you just don't know what it is that they want you to do. You have to search around the page to find who you need to contact. You have no idea how you're supposed to buy whatever product it is they're selling if you understand what the product is at all. Now, I don't know how many of you, maybe this plays out for you. How many of you have a business, you have a cause that you support, part of a nonprofit, maybe you have a product. Anybody have a website? You might sell essential oils, multi-level marketing, you annoy us all on Facebook, whatever that happens to be. Maybe you have something in tech. Here's how it works. You have a great idea for a new business or a new product. You end up gathering those ideas up. You think about it a lot. Then you meet with a designer. Any designers in the room? Okay, you meet with a designer because what you want is you want marketing collateral right away. I want to see my idea on paper. I want to see what the logo looks like. I've already gobbled up the Instagram handle, right? It's going to happen. I'm making t-shirts already because we're ready to pump this idea out to market. So you take it out to a designer, and this designer might be incredibly talented, as most designers are. They're talented. They've studied a lot of design. They've studied maybe how to build a website. They might have a degree in Photoshop and all that stuff. You pay them a bunch of money, and then they create your beautiful website. And if you've ever experienced that moment of either creating your own website or having somebody create a website for you, you get home, you log into the website, and then you just kind of stand there and you keep pressing refresh for about the first 10 to 15 minutes. The website's not going to change, but you just want to see it load again because it's so beautiful, and it just expresses your soul on your laptop or on your mobile device. It is just your digital representation of who you are as a being, and you start to think, boy, I can't wait until the orders start rolling in, until I start sending out these essential oils to everybody that needs them. Oh, I mean, I'm just going to be pumping out. I'm going to be scheduling meetings and consultations, and we're going to set the world on fire. But then nothing happens. You start looking at your analytics, you start to see all these things, you start to dig through and you go, wait a minute, how come? Maybe it's my content. You start throwing out more content, then you do the worst thing you can, you start rearranging, adding more copy, taking away the copy, you start typing more things, you put a picture of you put a picture of your dog, anything you can. You call up your mom, you text her, well, you probably don't text it to her, you probably go over to her house and you type it into her computer and say, hey, look at my website. But the problem is, people don't buy products and services because they see something cute on a website. People buy products and services primarily because they've read the words that convince them and make them want to buy things. The way that you talk about your product, the way that you talk about your service, the way that you talk about your cause is what gets people to buy those products. So the designer that you took your idea to, they're probably great at design. They probably made a very beautiful website, a very beautiful t-shirt, a very beautiful billboard. And it's amazing, it's awesome because they know all of those things, but they probably never took a sales copy course. They probably never studied what motivates people to buy. And again, people buy products or support causes only after they hear the words or read the words that make them want to buy these products. And you know it's true. How many of you got your holiday shopping done? Most of the way you're shopping right now? It's okay, you can raise your hand if you have. See, I do most of my shopping on Amazon. Anybody else shopping on Amazon? Yeah, exactly. Okay, quick aside. When I was younger, I remember getting the Toys R Us toy catalog, like the week of Thanksgiving, right? That bad boy came in the mail, probably in the Sunday paper, and I took that out, and I was circling everything that I wanted, and I put that on the fridge, because that was pretty much my Christmas list. Like, Santa was going to read it, he was going to understand, he's going to stop at Toys R Us, the elves are going to get out, they're going to go on the shopping spree with their Joffrey bucks, they're going to come, that's dating, by the way, if you know Joffrey bucks, they're going to come out to the sleigh, make it to my house, boom, I'm going to have everything I ever wanted. Now, all I ever do is I like send links to relatives from what I want on Amazon, or worse, I make a wish list. I'm just like, that's my list, just buy that. Anyway, so when you go on Amazon to buy anything, here's how it works for me. I go to the product that I'm looking for, I'll look at the photo, I like the little 360-degree view too, I might look at the back of the product, whatever that is. I might read one or two things in the description, but what are we all doing? We're scrolling all the way down to the bottom to the what? The reviews. You're scrolling to the reviews, and you read through the reviews because you're looking to read, scanning for that information that says, this product is going to give me what I need. This product is going to solve my problem. This product is going to work. And at the worst, I'm looking at those one-star reviews to say, okay, how bad can it actually be? Right? Like, did it decapitate someone? Because if it didn't, I'm still buying it. So you start scanning these things because you're looking for the right words. And that's one of those things that we know already, is that if we create a clear message about why our customers really need our products, why our customers need to engage with our causes, then we're going to win in the marketplace. And here's a principle, that people do not actually buy the best products. I know this is shocking. People do not buy the best products. They do not engage in the best services. They buy the products and services that are the easiest to understand. I'm going to say that again, because that takes a little bit for me to think about too, is that people do not buy the best products. They buy the products that are the easiest and the clearest to understand. Now, I know some of you are entrepreneurs, you make your own products, you might be in tech, and I'm advocating, make the best product out there. But if you have a competitor in the marketplace that's creating an inferior product, and they can communicate their product better than you, they're going to win every time. They're going to win every time. And so if you're first to market, it doesn't matter unless you can convince customers that you have the answers to the problems that they're looking to solve. Let's see here. Here's proof. How many of you guys team iPhone? Anybody iPhone? iPhone, okay. Samsung? I'm not even going to go Android, just Samsung. Samsung people are always kind of like, that's right, Samsung. If you think about the advertising between iPhone and Samsung, I'm going to stand here. Again, I have Apple products, but I can tell you the superior product is a Samsung product, right? They have all the features first. They get all the things first, right? Samsung people, darn right on that one. They're the better product. But what does Samsung advertise around? Their product features. But how come iPhone still remains competitive? Even though they have a far inferior product. They're like generations behind Samsung. It's because they're not advertising based on their product features as much as they're advertising based on an identity. They're advertising clearly as to what your life would look like with an Apple product. Meanwhile, Samsung has a commercial of them standing outside of an Apple store. They're advertising about their competitors and their competitors' lifestyle instead of telling you what your life would look like with their far superior product. So the fact that Apple exists and is competitive in the marketplace is proof that you don't have to have the best product. You have to clearly communicate your product the best. In fact, interesting story about Steve Jobs. You know, he created all the Apple stuff. He's the guru of all that. Did you know that way back when, you know, in the 80s and whatever, he came out with a product called the Lisa? Anybody remember the Lisa? Yeah, okay, yeah, right, that's right. Did you know when they launched the Lisa, Steve Jobs bought a 9-page spread in the New York Times. Bought a 9-page spread in the New York Times. And that advertisement was chock full of all of the technological wonders and marvels that this new computing machine had. And it flopped. It completely flopped. And Steve Jobs got fired from Apple for the first time. Now, for some of you that know the story, like there was problems with the price point, there were other things wrong with the Lisa, but the guy bought a 9-page ad in the New York Times to tell you all of the product specifications, and nobody bought it, even though it was a far superior product. And you could go through, you could talk about beta versus VHS, you could talk about Blu-ray and HD DVD, and all of these products that went head-to-head against each other. And it wasn't always the best product that won. It was the product that was communicated the clearest. So the story about Steve Jobs, he ends up going to a different company and through a couple of different interactions buys stock in this company called Pixar. Anybody heard of Pixar, right? And he starts meeting with a guy named John Lasseter. They start talking about this new commercial. It was a Listerine commercial, and then Disney said, hey, we want a piece of that Listerine commercial. Can you do that for Toy Story? Created Toy Story 1. So Steve Jobs is now around these people that are talking about story and how to communicate the point of their story the clearest. Steve Jobs got hired back at Apple, and he went from a 9-page spread in the New York Times to a 2-word advertisement for Apple. Think different. Think different. He erased 9 pages worth of technical specifications to tell you about an aspiration that you had and about what success would look like with your product. And it's one of the best companies in the world right now, off of a 2-word marketing campaign. Think different. So, communicating the clearest is the key to getting your product, your service, to getting your cause followed. In fact, I would say that clarity is the new creativity. And I love sitting around with creatives, I really do. But if you don't know how to creatively communicate what you want to communicate clearly, then you're in the wrong business. Because you could be a designer, you can be an artist, someone who puts art on the wall to be observed. But if you want to engage customers, if you want to motivate people to follow, if you want to motivate people to take action, to buy, to engage, then you need to communicate in a way that is clearer than it is to be creative. And the reason is because you have to understand 2 things about the human brain. Human brain is trying to do 2 things at its very base and core. Number 1 is survive and thrive. The first thing a human brain wants to do is survive and thrive. Like that's literally the only reason it's in your skull, is to help your body survive and thrive. Its main objective is to help keep you alive. In fact, if you have some catastrophic injury to the rest of your body, your brain will put you in a coma in order to conserve your energy so that way you can survive. And most of us have studied that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you remember that. Maybe if you were a psych major, you know about that when we talked about it a little bit in high school. And once your base level needs are taken care of, then you start to go after some higher needs. And I mean, thank God for most of us that live in this first world economy, our needs for food, water, and shelter are pretty much taken care of. Judging by the coffee cups in front of you, everybody had something to eat today. Most of you know where you're going to sleep tonight, and so you've got that down. And so in our society now, it's not just as important to survive, it's important to thrive. I mean, we start looking beyond those basic needs for survival. We start to look for relationships. We start to look for a tribe. We look for people who will support us spiritually, who will support us economically, who will support us physically and emotionally. And so it happens this way. Like if you end up giving someone a compliment, or if I were to buy you, a cup of coffee, you'd be like, wow, Eric is so nice, right? And so, but what's going on in this primal urge in my brain is, yes, I want to be nice, but ultimately, I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee so that you start to like me. So when the zombie apocalypse happens, you're going to fight with me, and you're going to fight for me. I mean, we don't think about that every day, but that's what's happening. You're making relational connections because when the barbarians come over the hill behind your cul-de-sac and they're going to take over your little subdivision, you want that person to fight for you. Because relationships matter. We need to survive and thrive. And so we may not be thinking about this all the time, but the people who are interacting with our brands, who are interacting with our causes, who are interacting with our products, that's the very first thing they're thinking. Is how can this thing help me survive, or how can this thing help me thrive? Is this going to keep me alive, or is this going to make my life better? And if you can't tell me within 7 seconds, even less in some cases, if you can't tell me even less, then I'm tuning out. I'm not going to listen. If what you're communicating about your brand isn't directly connected to helping your customers survive and thrive, then they're not going to pay attention. Because we're all essentially scanners. And this isn't like, something that just happened. It's not because our technology and, all of our screens and stuff like that. This is something that makes us, it's our physiological being as a human. As we start scanning things, I mean, think about the way that you look at websites. You look at your own website and you look through it and you read every single line and you look at the periods and the commas and the hyphens and should I italicize this and bold this, and this is Montserrat versus Calibri. Like, you're looking through your website, your social media, probably your parents, your siblings, your best friends, but the customers that are going to engage with your brand, they're scanning. When you're looking through something to buy, you're scanning. I mean, it's true. You're scanning, you're looking for bold words, you're looking for words that stick out. You're looking right away to say, is this going to help me get ahead? Is this going to help me get stronger? Is this going to help me have a better quality of life? Is this going to help me feel better about myself? Because everything I'm doing is going to try and look to find ways to help me survive and thrive. So if you're at a mixer, if you're at a cocktail party, if you're at like a Code City gathering, and people walk up to you and they say, hey, what do you do? And you have this answer, and you say, well, actually, we do a lot of things. In fact, my grandfather, he started this company, and wouldn't you believe it, like we're up for the the top workplaces award. It's pretty good, and we're actually trying to double revenue this quarter. Get me out of that conversation. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with it because I'm scanning your conversation, and I'm hearing nothing that's going to help me survive and thrive. So whatever you're about to pitch me about your product or about this new thing that you're in or this side hustle you've got, I'm out. I'm out. Because you're talking about yourself. I'm going, oh, great, good for you. And that's a problem because of the second thing that our brain is trying to do. First is help us survive and thrive, and the second is to conserve calories. To conserve calories, because it takes a lot of calories to think and concentrate. For those of you that have recently graduated from college, maybe you passed the bar, maybe you're in medical school, you know what it's like, or if you've done a lot of research when you're sitting here on your laptop and you're looking through things and you could go through a full day of research, a full day of studying, you get exhausted by the end of the day when all you've done is sit there and read. But that's because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of calories to think. And when your brain has to process a lot of data that it knows will have absolutely nothing to do with surviving and thriving, you start to tune out. In fact, the research shows that we daydream about 30% of our entire day. And that's our body's way of trying to conserve calorie. We daydream about, yeah, some people think it's more, right? Like 50% maybe? Yeah, exactly. So 30% of our day or more, you're daydreaming. And you know it. It's because in the middle of this 15 to 20 minute talk, you're going to start daydreaming here because you're going to start hearing things that have nothing to do with your survival. And that's where I've lost you. And that's to help your brain conserve those calories. So when you have an opportunity to talk about your brand or talk about your cause or talk about the new thing that you're doing and you spend time talking about your grandfather or your Q1 reports or the top workplaces that you've got going on, like I'm starting to think I'm just not going to spend any more of my calories trying to listen to this person. I'm going to tune them out. And what's worse, and this is worse, and that's what I get to, when I ask people, hey, so what do you do? And if your response to me is, well, it's complicated. I mean, you know what you've done to me? You've just told me, hey, this is going to take you a lot of mental energy to understand what it is I'm about to tell you. And so, like, immediately you have to go, okay, all right, buckle up, get ready. It's, I mean, like you're getting ready to go on a workout. Like you're going to hop on the treadmill. You're not just going to randomly hop in, whoa, hey, look, I'm starting to run now. Your brain is going, okay, bear down, I got to do that. Like you say, it's complicated. Now I'm out. Because if I burn a ton of calories trying to understand what you have to tell me about what it is that you do, then at the end of the day, and I'm out of calories and the zombies come after me, I'm going to die. Because I don't have enough energy to fight them off. But you see, scanning is a good thing. Like, it's really a good thing that we scan through our lives looking for those pieces of survival and thriving. Because otherwise, you'd never get out of the bed in the morning. Because imagine if every single thing you interacted with, you had to look at and you got like preoccupied by it and you were going to start reading about it. Oh, I wonder how this thing is made and I wonder what all these knobs do. And you would just never get through your day because we are constantly searching for patterns. And in fact, our brains will create and finish a pattern when it doesn't actually exist. I mean, you know, that's true too. And so when you're trying to communicate about your brand, when you're trying to communicate about the product, when you're trying to communicate about the cause that you have, if you don't clearly fill in the gaps for people, if you don't clearly communicate in that pattern, their brains are going to finish the pattern for you. And most of the time, they're going to do it wrong. And they're not going to end up making a purchase. They're not going to get engaged. They're not going to buy into what you have to say. So we want to help communicate about the things that will help our customers survive and thrive, and we want to do it in a way that's going to help them conserve calories. So in the best way possible. That's why clarity is key. Because every time you talk about your brand, think about that. Okay, so everybody, you've got to kind of customize this for you. If you don't have a company, think about a cause that you have, think about something you're interested in, think about whatever presentation or interview you're going to kill, especially if somebody says, hey, what do you do? Now, every piece of information that I'm going to hand you is like an 8-pound bowling ball. Do you think you can hold an 8-pound bowling ball? Yeah, probably. Okay. I hand you a second 8-pound bowling ball. Do you think you can handle both of those? Yeah, pretty much. But then I hand you a third piece of information, but now I'm going to use some sort of insider speak, some sort of technical term, or some sort of like cute and creative name that I've given it. That's like wrapping the bowling ball in Vaseline. So now I've handed you this heavy item that you're trying to understand, and you have nothing really to grip with because you don't even understand the terminology I've just used. I hand you those three. What do you think? Okay, but maybe. But as soon as I try to hand you that fourth piece of information, how many bowling balls do you end up dropping? All of them. All 4. So when you start to overload your customers, when you start to overload the people in your lives with pointless details, with details they can't understand, with details that are wrapped up in all these things, like if you have to start explaining what the name of your company is to the people, like already, that's not a clear message. If you have to start explaining what is the product or the service that you do already, that's not a clear message. If the top of your website doesn't clearly tell someone what they're going to receive if they make a purchase from you, you are wasting your time and your money. You're handing them bowling balls. You start to use words like creative, artisan solutions. That was on a website I saw. Someone said creative artisan solutions. There's a picture of a cliff behind them. I have no idea what a creative artisan solution is. Are you selling me water? Are you selling me a travel thing? Are you a photographer? I have no idea. My brain had to work way too hard to figure out what that website meant. And you know the first thing I did? I didn't click the Buy It Now button in the upper right. I clicked the red X in the upper left. And I was out. Because my brain was not going to spend more time on those calories that it takes for me to figure out what they want. And that's what's happening with all of our businesses because you're in a competition. You're in a competition with other people. You're in a competition with everybody's brain thinking about surviving and thriving. So we're at that cocktail party and you're explaining to me what it is that you do and you said it's complicated and it has nothing to do with me surviving and thriving, and worse yet, someone just walked by with a tray full of bacon-wrapped dates, which has everything to do with my surviving and thriving. I'm trying to figure out what are my exit points to get out of that conversation, and that's exactly what the people who are interacting with you are doing. The same thing. They're going to move on to the thing that will help them solve their problem. And so, as Nate said, I'm a StoryBrand Certified Guide, and StoryBrand is a company that helps people clarify their message. It's founded by a guy named Donald Miller, and that doesn't really matter. The fact is that they help you clarify the message in your branding. I've got a couple of books up here, but the basis and the key for what their mantra is that if you confuse, you'll lose. If you confuse, you'll lose. If you confuse, you'll lose. If you confuse your customers, you're going to lose their business. And there's an author named Lee Lefevre, and he's got a great terminology for how easy it is for us to confuse the people around us. And he calls it the curse of knowledge. Have you ever heard of this? The curse of knowledge. So let's pretend you know your brand, you know the place that you work, you know the cause that you have, you know your industry at a level, let's see, 10. Okay, right here is level 10. And you know it inside and out because you probably invented the thing, right? Or you created the thing, or you worked in and out, or you went through like a 3-week training process, or you went through school, so you know this thing so well. You know all the terminology, you know the insider speak, you know all the price points, you know the secret language and the handshake to get into the club in order to talk about your thing. But you know that you got to dumb it down a little bit for your customers. So you dumb it down, you try to take out some of the things, make it easier for them to understand. But the problem is you are so close to your brand, your product, that you still only dumb it down to about a level 6. 10 to level 6. So there's 10, here's 6. Problem is, as a customer, especially a first-time customer that interacts with your brand, it doesn't matter what it is. Could be a cause, could be a service, could be a presentation you're giving for the first time. Customers and consumers make buying decisions at a level 1 and 2. And the gap between 1 and 6 is called the curse of knowledge. And what you've done is you've then imprinted your own knowledge onto your customers, and you assume that they know what you know, and they don't. And at the base level, when they interact with you, they want to make a buying decision at level 1 and a level 2. So you have to clarify your messaging. You have to clarify what it is that you do. You have to clarify your story to the point that we actually say that you pass the grunt test. So imagine a caveman sitting in front of a fire, looking at your website, and they need to grunt out what is it that you do. They need to be able to grunt out how it's going to help them. You need to grunt out, how do I buy? It can't be more complicated than that. You have to help me understand how you're going to help me survive and thrive, and don't confuse me in the process. And so that's what we're talking about StoryBrand. I got a couple of books I'm going to give out, and we're going to do a couple of one-minute website makeovers. If you have more information, we could do some Q&A afterwards. But basically, the framework kind of works like this. Your customer wants you to talk about them, because your customer's walking through your door with a what's in it for me mentality. And I know a couple of you in the room, you work for nonprofits, you might work for faith-based organizations, and even in those organizations where they're donating, even those organizations where they're trying to go and serve, they're still asking the question, what's in it for me? And so if you're talking about you, if you're talking about how great you are, if you're talking about how great your organization is or how much you've done, and you never talk about what's in it for your customer, you're losing them right away. So your customer wants you to talk about them, because they're thinking, what's in it for me? Your customer wants you to talk about their problems. Your customer wants you to talk about their problems, because if you don't talk about their external and internal problems, they don't think that you can solve them. They don't think that you can solve them. If you're not addressing those problems, your customer is going to opt themselves out, and they won't listen. You need to position your brand as a guide, as a helper, as a mentor, as someone who knows what who knows what your customer is going through, and who exhibits some level of authority to help them solve that problem. Because if you don't prove to me that you know how to solve my problem, then I'm not buying from you. And you need to give them easy steps, like we said, non-confusing, easy steps to overcome their problem, and clearly show them what success looks like after they've interacted with your brand, and how you can help them avoid failure. Because again, you can have the best product in the world. You can have the best service in the world. You could be supporting the best cause on the planet. But if your competition can communicate how their inferior product or their inferior service or their inferior cause will help your customers better than you, they're going to win every time. And so remember, if you want to take one thing away from this, it's that if you confuse, you'll lose in the marketplace every day. Thank you very much.